And we allow our breath to flow for a moment. Huge inhales and very relaxed exhales. Trying to fill up our lungs even deeper with the next breath in. Just continue this deep breath cycle as we begin to connect with our intention for today. The intention that we're working on is the idea of finding balance between strength and softness. So there's some poses, and sometimes in Yin, it's not so much holding a strong pose, but it's those poses we take in between that might be a little bit more strength-based. And so we're going to help ourselves feel those poses and then contrast them with some of the soft poses. In Yin, since we're going deep, sometimes the depth can be its own type of strength that we're adding on to. But the idea that we're working on is similar to the idea of like a bicep. Any muscle that we have has an opposing muscle. So the opposing muscle to the bicep is the tricep. So if we contract the bicep, the tricep has to go soft and it has to go flexible in order for that bicep curl to happen. If the tricep were to contract just as strongly as the bicep is contracting, our arm would not be able to move in strongly. Instead, the arm would be rigid. It'd be like rigor mortis, just that strength without having any sort of flow and release to it. And so in this way, by practicing opposing stretches and even adding in just little tiny aspects of strength here and there, we're going to be able to help our body experience this different kind of balance within. And so with this idea to help lead us on, I'd like us to start off just with a simple stretch. Arms up overhead. Feel the muscles getting pulled really long. Feel all sorts of muscle groups around the core, around the back. These muscles especially getting lengthened for a moment. And then feel the contrast as the knees start to come into the chest. There's a little bit more of the curled in position. So feel how this contrasts that pose. That's exactly the type of contrasts we're looking for. So give yourself a moment for the hips to do just a couple of circles on the ground. This helps to loosen them up, preparing us for every good thing to come. And then from here, as the arms start to open out to each direction, let the knees start to fall over to the left. In this final twist, we can play with how deep we're feeling it in the spine. So maintaining exactly this twist would be the easiest, most kind variation. It's the way that our spine can just kind of easefully rest into its shape. So this is a pose where you can have personal preference. You can stay in this more restful variation, just simply letting knees fall to the side. Or you can start to slide the left foot long on the mat again, that's the bottom foot, so that we can have the left hand on top of the right knee. And that would add just a little bit more of the muscular aspect to this pose. A little bit more of helping the twist happen, rather than just allowing gravity to be doing its job. So find your perfect amount of balance anywhere in between, with knee stacking, more of the restorative, the restful variation, or the more strong, deeper variation. And begin to feel how your body responds to the shape. How does it receive? How does it relax? Is there any release to this? Feel how even the very breath affects this pose. It's almost like the airbag effect. When we breathe into the diaphragm, the twist gets taken out ever so slightly. And then when we exhale, the twist is able to ever so slightly deepen. So maybe play with that for a moment. Doing one more good inhale. And then with the exhale, feel the body returning back onto the ground. Let both feet plant for just a moment. And we're going to take the strong pose of bridge pose. We press the feet into the earth, start to lift up the hips, and feel the back lifting up as high as it can off the ground. Holding here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release it all back down. So feel how adding a little bit of strength to the back helped us to recover quite quickly from that twist. The back muscles remembered, oh yeah, this is how I hold strongly. So then from here, we're going to start heading into the second side twist. Perhaps just start off with the knees falling all the way over to the right, arms opening out, and begin to feel the breath starting to flow here. The breath into the abdomen. Start to feel the back muscles relaxing into this shape. We can compare the left side with the right side, checking in with how each are doing. Perhaps you're wanting to deepen this side by sliding the right leg back to the length and keeping this left knee in the twist. So imagine you have a scale between completely soft, I am doing absolutely no work, to completely hard. I'm forcing my body in toward a rigid shape. I'm gonna do this. It's full of effort, full of strength. Where on that scale do you fall in this moment? Are you much closer to the restorative, relaxing side? Are you much closer to the yin, trying to get right to the edge of the stretch side? This is a pose that can go either direction. So just check in with yourself so that you can learn, what do I do and why do I do it? Is it because it's a conscious choice? In this moment, I would like to be soft to help balance all the rigidity I've felt in my life recently. Or vice versa. This is a moment where I need structure, I need stability. And perhaps playing with that instead. Allow another good inhale to flow into the belly. And with the exhale, we're going to take bridge pose again. Both feet work their way to plant. Hands slide in by the hips. We rise our hips up. Maybe hands can clasp under the back this time. Maybe walking shoulders under to arch the spine even higher than before. Enjoying a nice back bend. Feel how this requires strength of some areas, strength of glutes, some of the back muscles strong, but also it requires the softness of the front of the body to be able to continue to arch. So enjoy one more good inhale. And a relaxed exhale, returning ourselves back to the ground. And from here, we're able to make our way up toward a seated position. Perhaps just roll your way directly up. And from this place, we're taking a beautiful Cobbler's pose. Your choice, whether bottoms of feet are shoved really close in toward the torso, or perhaps they're a little bit further away today, your personal preference, but ask the back to become soft as it starts to tilt forward. And check in with your body. What else can become soft? Can the head soften its way down? Can the shoulders soften at all? Can the low back soften? Finding this quality of absolute release and comfort. And is there anything you can do to help your body soften even deeper? Sometimes there's neck tightness that becomes apparent. So perhaps if that's the case, you purposely start to roll around on the neck, allowing the neck to become looser and softer. Or perhaps the hands want to walk a little bit further, and then our spine can find a new release from that depth. So now as we start to slowly walk our way in, we'll take this next pose to again explore the strength aspect. So I'd like us to lift the knees up, plant the feet, plant the hands behind us, and then start to lift the hips up as high as you can. It's similar to the bridge, but there's a little bit more arm strength involved. So lift yourself up and just notice. What is working? What is strong here? What makes this difficult? Take one more breath to contract your way up tall. And then with that eventual release back down, tuck the left foot in, allow a right leg to reach out long, and feel yourself coming into a nice forward fold. Hands dropping down, spine softening back to this forward position. Continue to play with it. Is there new places to release into? Maybe walking just slightly forward. Or sometimes straightening the low back. Find moments of muscle contraction through that straightening And then try to keep the low back straight as we drop our way back forward. That is one really intense way to go much deeper in poses, but that is more of a strength-based way. So if that's not what the body is asking for, go back to softness. You can have full liberty here to play with those extremes. What would work best? What would be in my highest good in this moment? Starting to work our way up, let's take the reverse tabletop again, planting the feet, planting the hands, lifting our hips up. Let the head rock back as long as the neck is comfortable. Another good inhale, and then exhale, settling down. Right foot in, left leg long. Feel your spine relaxing back down. Same position for the spine, but because we're on this leg now, it's such a new experience. There's freshness to it. So try to soften into this space. What is it that this side would be grateful for as we try to include it even deeper? And as we're really trying to and starting to relax into this place, we're also being present with the body. Does it feel like I'm still at the appropriate depth? Should I go just a little bit more? Should I alternatively back off? My muscles are aching and how deep I'm going. Sometimes that's the case. If there's still a place that your body wants you to play with, perhaps go there, maybe lengthen the low back and try to release even more. Enjoy one more good inhale. With our exhale, we can start to rise back up. We'll swing our legs around, coming all the way onto our bellies. And here we're going to play with a beautiful back bend, letting the other half of our spine get a chance to really stretch out. And know that you've got places to play with of complete ease, complete softening. So perhaps that's what we play with first, putting into Sphinx Pose. Instead of including the muscle groups to lift the belly up or to force our heart forward and through, instead of doing that, try, even just for a moment, to kind of just melt into the bones, seeing what bones are willing to hold us up. How does this feel? Can even the head drop down. So this is this extreme, 100% soft. Working toward the other extreme, it would be seal pose. We plant the hands off the two edges of the mat and then start to straighten the arms in toward a deeper back bend. All the muscles need to be included ever so lightly to keep our back safe in a lifted arch. So this would be, in this pose at least, 100% strong. It requires the muscular strength of the arms. It requires the propping up and maybe even sometimes the walking in ever deeper. So that would be the other extreme. So now listen to your body. We've got a few more minutes to be in this shape. So listen to your body. What extreme, what balance, what part of the scale would I like to be on in this shape? How is my back receiving it? Some days it's receiving it quite nicely. Your body loves it. It's so happy to be here. Other days it's a little bit too intense. It's too much, and so we need to back off. But try to be with that perfect balance in any given moment. We'll be here for another 5 deep, slow breaths. Try to connect back to the breath that we started with. Feeling the muscular effort for the inhale and feel the softening for the exhale. Let's start to head out of this shape toward a nice child pose. Feel the spine switching its orientation. So in the back bend, the back muscles had to be a little bit more contracted to keep the arch happening. And now in child's pose, it's more of the front part of the body that's being lightly contracted or at least compressed, so that the back space can go extra long. So really receive and enjoy the chance to be here in child pose. Start to walk the hands off the left edge of the mat in our child pose, getting an extra long stretch through right side body. And start walking the hands off the other side of the mat, allowing the second side to get stretched just as long, just as deep. And as we return evenly onto the mat, let's take 2 bonus breaths here, right in the center with Child Pose. For that second breath, we're going to walk ourselves in just a bit so we can start setting up for a dragon pose. Stepping our left foot all the way toward the top left edge of the mat. In dragon pose today, we're going to sink our hips forward and then walk our hands up onto our thighs, trying to play with this deeper variation. This won't be a pose that we hold for a full 3 minutes, but we're going to take 5 slow, deep breath cycles to feel more of the work happening as we're trying to stretch and release deeply into this pose, but yet it's more of a strong pose, more of a pose that requires some balance. Take another huge inhale. And then with our exhale, we're going to actually head in toward pyramid pose. So keep this front foot planted. Tuck the back toes so you can lift up the back leg, scooting it in pretty much at the same spot where the knee was just a moment ago. Both legs are working their way toward straight as we start to take this forward fold. So note, some people may be able to touch the ground with 2 straight legs. Some people may be walking up a little bit higher onto the shin or even onto the thigh. We don't want pressure directly on the knees, so just note we're not going quite that far. But to whatever spot you can feel the stretch begin to settle into that shape, that placement. Feel how this seems like less effort than the dragon pose. Part of the reason is the lifting up action and the slight arch to the spine with that lift requires more heated energy. Anytime we go into a forward fold, it's more of a cooling energy, so it feels like more of a release. Even though this might be just as much of a balance challenge, perhaps for you, as the last one. So now we're going to slide this right foot up next to the left foot and dangle just for a couple of breaths. You're welcome to bring your hands into elbow creases or perhaps to create a hug around the calves. Whatever helps you to gently feel like you're using just a little bit of muscular effort to find a deeper release through the spine, a deeper release through the glutes, through the hamstrings, all sorts of muscle groups here. Good, one more inhale. And then exhale as the hands start to drop down. This time, leave the right foot forward. The left foot needs to slide all the way back so that we can drop it down for our dragon pose. We end up with the front foot completely flat when we sink forward. If the knee's going past toes, scoot the toes forward. When you've got that set up, we come into this shape where we rise up and then sink the hips low. Start to feel the release, feel this depth. Three more slow, steady breaths. And then when you're ready, start to drop the hands down, tuck the back toes, and when you lift up the back knee, slide that foot into the placement where the knee just was. Front leg goes straight. Remember, you can walk yourself up a little bit higher if that helps you have a straighter front leg. Otherwise, just continue to find this deeper and deeper release. Little hint, in order for the hamstring to go really long, the opposite side, so the quadricep needs to be a little bit contracted. The same concept we were discussing earlier with the bicep curls. And so if you're wanting to straighten this front leg out to go even deeper, you can contract the quadricep. What you can do to tell that it's contracted is see if the kneecap lifts just a little bit. You're not hyperextending, so it shouldn't be pushing beyond what it's capable of. But that slight lift means that the quadricep is engaged, and that means that the hamstring is about as long as it can possibly get. Let's feel that position, breathe into that position. One more really big inhale. And then with the exhale, turn to your long edge of the mat in a little bit of a wider dangle pose. So the feet are maybe 2 shoulder distances apart. You can choose perhaps hands coming into elbow creases, hanging heavy, or perhaps grabbing onto the legs, try to pull yourself in. Find that nice balance between absolute softness and absolute work here. And a beautiful inhale. And then with the exhale, the hands can drop down. We're gonna set up for frog pose. So this is the pose where it may be helpful to curl the two edges of the mat in to add just a little bit of extra padding to the knees. Once you've got them folded in, let the knees spread as far apart as they're capable of going. Make sure that the feet and the shins are going directly back instead of being tucked in. And keep the hips right in line with the knees. We're not going forward, we're not going backward, we're right over. So from that placement, start to drop down to elbows. Sometimes people can drop even further, widening the elbows. Let the heart arch down, setting down the chest and maybe the chin. This is very deep though, so if that made you have to go forward or backward at all, that's not the variation for today. So find the placement where hips can stay and we breathe. This is one of those more intense poses. This is one of those poses that the muscles are kind of screaming at you because they're saying, oh, you know what, this is just about as deep as I could possibly stretch right now. And so try to relax into it, try to find softening even in the intensity. And isn't that a concept for our lives? How often do we tense when things get harder? What if we occasionally tried to soften into the struggle instead? It's that idea of when a car's about to crash, if a person gets rigid, they will end up hurting themselves, perhaps snapping bones. But the person who's softer, unfortunately, usually the drunk driver that hits, that softness makes it so the body takes on much less damage. And so it's that question, where can I have softness in my life, especially in those moments of intensity, of direct contact? How can I have how can I soften there instead of having that rigid nature? Let's try to release for about 5 more breath cycles here. Take one more good inhale. Exhale, we soften out of this by relaxing the hips forward until we can rest the entire torso down. Once we're there, bend the knees and let the feet do some nice windshield wipers. You'll notice that the gentle motion helps to loosen things up. Things that were just screaming at you are now feeling quite a bit better. So from here, let's open the mat back out. And we're gonna head into the shape of pigeon pose. So start with one of your legs out in front of you. I'm starting with left, but you can take right first if that hip feels like it wants it first. I scoot the back knee backwards as far as it's able to go, and I make sure my hips are level. I'm not resting all the way onto left side. I'm not collapsing on the right side. They're exactly level. My sacrum is even. And from this place, I start to release. Compared to frog pose, which felt like that screaming intensity that was farther toward the yin side of the spectrum, pigeon, for some people, can be more of the easeful pose, the more of the restorative pose. So see if you can find that quality. Not everybody that's true for. Some people, pigeon pose may be even more intense than the last one for them. So that's okay. We're all different. Our bodies are built different based on how our body has practiced strength versus ease up to this point in our life. But try to see what spots, what muscle groups can just have ease and relaxation. Be with it for 3 more deep breaths here. You finish that 3rd one, ease your way up, and begin to switch it out. So as we take this left leg back, maybe do a few nice little hip circles, just wagging that tailbone out, wagging the hips, until your body feels ready to receive the 2nd side. Perhaps right leg, if you're with me. Otherwise, just take that 2nd side. And perhaps play with each extreme. Set it all the way to the right and set it all the way to the left. And feel how the body kind of isn't exactly going to balance. We have to force it to happen. So instead, set it right in the middle and then begin to ease down. One idea about this strong principle is that the strength of who we are, if you imagine that as the spine, the thing that keeps us lifted against gravity all day long, the spine and that strength can represent everything that we went through to get us to where we are now. Perhaps all the schooling, all the experiences, all the heartbreaks, all the financial troubles, everything we might have gone through that's led us to the strength that we have in this moment. And also, sometimes as we head to the future, we can't predict exactly what will happen. I'm sure you and I both had no clue that 2020 would shape out to the way that it did. And so that's where the softness comes in. We're strong because of everything that led us up to where we are now. But as we're heading to the future, we can be soft. We can soften and be flexible toward whatever the next couple of months may have in store for us. We can know that we can make it through because we've been through hard things before. Our body knows how to be soft through those moments. Try to find softness in this shape. We're here just a little bit longer. Take one more easeful breath in. Nice relaxing exhale. And then soften your way up to a seated place. Feel how the hips may not want to immediately move. So be easeful here, perhaps letting knees rock left and right. As that feels pretty complete, we've got enough time for one more shape today. So I'll give you 2 options depending on what would be a good balance of ease versus that strength for your body today. So for some people, happy baby pose, grabbing onto the outside edges of feet and simply trying to hold here is a hard enough balance. It's difficult, it requires strength and also flexibility to achieve. And for other people, plow pose would be that pose, the one where we lift our way all the way up, trying to get the toes to touch the ground. If they don't touch the ground, we walk our hands to the low back to make sure our back is still supported the whole time. So this pose, or happy baby pose, or perhaps your brain has this perfect image of this one last pose that perfectly symbolizes stretching, easefulness, and strength, rigidity. Find your way into that shape and know that it can be a little bit fluid. For instance, if I'm here in flow, if my feet want to try to go a little bit wider so that I can play with that shape, perhaps that's what you do. In Happy Baby, perhaps there's a little bit of rocking of your hips left and right. So ease your way into whatever shape is working for your body, for your system right now. We've got just a little bit longer. So keep on being playful with it. How does this shape want to evolve for my body right now? Sometimes from the plow pose, you can bend the knees and soften your way in toward this deep, curled in position. It's almost like the knees become little earmuffs for those ears, trying to soften into that curled in shape. If you're coming toward this placement, perhaps hands even curl around, trying to find this deeper position. But again, be playful. We're not forcing anything to happen that doesn't want to happen. Instead, we're releasing and just seeing where that will take us. One step at a time. One more good inhale, and then take all the time you need to soften your way back out. Especially if you did plow pose, it might feel nice to pause for a moment in a place where the hips are still floating, but the low back is elongating. That placement could feel so nice. To make sure you have lots of length in the discs in between the vertebrae before we're completely out of the shape. Settling very softly down to the earth. Checking in with our body. Are there any last movements, any last shapes the body is craving before it would be comfortable in Shavasana? If so, take any of those last things. Perhaps Shavasana is feet planted today to make sure the low back has that time to receive the length that it just got. Perhaps it's Cobbler's pose, allowing the hips a chance to passively open. Or sometimes long legs. The normal Shavasana seems like the highest and best good for us. So let your body start to explore and receive the shape that would help it the very best. Take your time to get into it. And when you find yourself in your Shavasana, play with your breath for a little while, noticing how the diaphragm has to work. It has to pull down in order to help the lungs fill up during that inhale. During the exhale, the diaphragm gets to simply ease its way back toward the comfortable position. So see if you can find that quality of balancing the work and the strength for the inhales and the easeful quality for the exhales. Start to let that rhythm take over, almost like it's massaging us like an ocean wave, leading us very gradually in, deeper and deeper in, so that we can see who we truly are and what we're made out of through this time in Shavasana today. Here, begin to deepen the inhales and the exhales. Allow yourself to stretch out long, introducing more and more wiggles. It's like we're waking up first thing in the morning. Eventually, we head over to a fetal position on one side. And feel yourself receiving a few more really good, deep breath cycles. Wonderful inhales, peaceful, relaxed exhales. Maybe 3 more rounds like that to help us ease into our body. Eventually, we head up to a comfortable seated place. The hands joined together in front of our hearts. And as we travel onward into this marvelous day, we have this realization that I have both sides, and both sides need to be in perfect balance for me to travel forward and to do work. Just like my arm, I can't have both sides doing work at the same time. There has to be balance of work and release, and then switching it out, work and release. In doing that and creating that balance, life feels more harmonious. It feels more easeful, like how walking now, we could do that for hours on end. Whereas for a baby, it was, rough. One step in front of the other felt like way too much. And so this is the idea, this balance, work and softness to lead us on. So with this idea, let's wrap up the time we got to share together today with the sound of Om. Deep inhale now. May we be filled with light and happiness and peace. Namaste.